Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. I am Misty Livingston, Associate Director for Multicultural Services and Black Student Services. And we have Dr. Daniel Luetta assisting with the technical side. Today, we continue our virtual Latinx Heritage Month series, and we hope that you have enjoyed it thus far. Last week's cultural patriarchy presentation was great. Today, we have the honor and privilege to host Dr. Enrique Morones. We will be recording today's presentation so that others will be able to view it that are not present. We want to first acknowledge that we gather on traditional land of the Tongva people, both past and present, and honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have stewarded it throughout the generations. Today's format will be as follows. Our speaker will give us some great information and just talk about his journey. And then we'll have some Q&A time at the end. So utilize the chat for that, or you can just unmute yourself. It is with great pleasure that I introduce our speaker. So I'm going to go off script for a moment like I typically do. A couple years ago, we brought in a Border Angel speaker, one of my friends from a previous institution, Yadi Ortiz. And this year we wanted to have, there's so much going on at the border. We wanted to discuss it. And Yadi said, I can do you one better. And she was great. So I was like, oh, wow, really better? And so we have our distinguished guest and speaker, Dr. Enrique Morones. He is a lifelong human rights activist born in San Diego to Mexican parents who instilled in him a deep love for Mexico, spiritual faith, and social justice. His driving force is the passage, "For I was hungry and you gave me food. I was thirsty and you gave me drink." Matthew 25, verse 35. Morones has a history of firsts. In 1998, he was the first person to be granted dual nationality with Mexico, the first two-term president of the San Diego County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, first vice president of Latino and diversity marketing in Major League Sports with the San Diego Padres, VP of Latino and International Marketing, founder of the House of Mexico, and founder of Border Angels, Saving Migrant Lives, a nonprofit volunteer group with more than 50,000 followers. He has since retired. As a result of his work in defense of migrants' rights, he has been featured on numerous media outlets such as NBC, CNN, CBS, BBC, ABC, NPR, Univision, the Washington Post, New York Times, and countless other media. He is a published author with The Power of One, The Border Angel Story, and has been in 6 feature films. He has hosted 2 radio shows and 4 podcasts. Enrique is frequently invited as a guest lecturer in all 50 states and has debated Bill O'Reilly, Larry King, Tucker Carlson, Dan Stein, Joe Arpaio, and more. Morones promotes the truth about the migrant community and border realities. As founder of Gente, Unida, a human rights border coalition, in April of 2005, he led the national effort against the vigilante Minutemen, soundly shutting them down. Enrique also led a 111 round-trip national caravan through 40 cities and 20 states from San Diego to DC, asking for human immigration reform, helping spark the massive pro-immigrant marches in the spring of 2006. He is recognized as one of the 100 most influential Latinos in the United States by Hispanic Business Magazine. Other recognitions include being the Frontline in Ireland Human Rights International Awardee for his lifelong dedication to human rights. In 2009, Mexico's National Human Rights Award presented by Mexican President Felipe Calderón. In 2010, California Spirit Award presented by Senator Gil Cedillo, and the Bishop Buddy Alumni Award presented by the University of San Diego. Enrique has his BS in International Marketing from San Diego State University, his MS in Executive Leadership from University of San Diego, and his honorary doctorate from Mexico's Human Rights Commission. Please, let's give a warm round to our speaker, Dr. Enrique Morones.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Muchas gracias. Well, I'm glad to be with all of you, and it's an honor for me. And I want to tell you that I'm going to give a brief presentation and then open it up for discussion, because I learn a lot from yourselves, and hopefully you'll be interested in some of the things that I have to say. As mentioned, or I don't know if it was mentioned, but I'm a native San Diegan, and I'm very proud to be 100% Mexicano. My parents were both born in Mexico. My older brother and sister were born in Mexico, and I was the first one born in this country. And it's been quite a journey since I started my work in human rights. The organization of the three organizations that I founded that's the best known is Border Angels, or Ángeles de la Frontera. And I see that there's lots of Latinos on this, I don't know what you call it, Zoom or whatever. And the way that I got the name Ángeles de la Frontera was from the #1 Spanish language show in history called Sábado Gigante, which I know the people that are Latinos have heard of, and some people that aren't Latinos may have heard of it as well. Sábado Gigante had a bigger than life host, Don Francisco. And back in 2001, which was my last year in professional baseball, I was invited to the show. So when I walked out on the stage in Miami, Don Francisco said, El Ángel de la Frontera. And I thought, that's a pretty good name for the group. And that's how we became Ángeles de la Frontera. So Don Francisco was like baptized us with the name, Ángeles de la Frontera, or Border Angels. And Border Angels, which I founded back in 1986, the mission statement is saving migrant lives. And when I first started it, because a lot of times people say, well, how did you get started in all this type of stuff? And I say, well, I give total credit to my parents for my upbringing and my faith. And in 1986, a friend of mine from the great country of El Salvador said, Enrique, oftentimes you're asking us to help you with donations and things like that for people that are without homes. How about where I live, where I, Yolanda, live? And I go, well, where do you live? And she said, Carlsbad. And I go, Carlsbad? That's a wealthy area. I live in Golden Hill. It's a working class neighborhood in San Diego. And she said, yes, but where I live in Carlsbad, there's migrants that live in the canyons, outdoors. And I go, what do you mean? She goes, yeah, people live outdoors in the canyons. And I said, oh, I want to check that out. So I started going up to Carlsbad in the north of San Diego. And sure enough, there was people living in these canyons. And these people are the people that, thanks to them, we have food on our table, because they work in the fields, in the strawberry fields, the tomato fields, etc. California, if it was a country, would be the 5th most powerful economy in the world, And the #1 industry is agriculture. And more than 85% of the people that work in agriculture are undocumented. So I went and I started bringing food and water to the people that live there, administering them to them, just talking to them. I'm not a minister, talking to them, to seeing how I could help them, to tell them that they have rights and to show appreciation and love for them. And that's how I started my work, my direct action with the community. Because before that, when I was in school, I was really involved in sports and things like that. Go to events, but I'd just be that guy in the back listening to Cesar Chavez give a talk in San Diego, or Dolores Huerta, etc. But I wasn't really actively involved besides that. So once that happened, once I saw the people living in the canyons, my life changed. And I thought I would be working on this for 6 months or something like that. Well, I ended up leading Border Angels as the founder for 33 years. And it's been quite a ride. And it's been, in 1986, I started it. In 1996, 10 years later, I started going out to the desert to put water out there. That's what kind of put us on the map as far as people knowing what we were doing. because the United States government, a little bit over a year before that, started to build a wall between the United States and Mexico called Operation Gatekeeper. And the US Mexican border is 2,000 miles long. That's how long the border is. Well, they built a wall that's 700 miles. About a third of the border has wall. And nobody has added any more wall in the last 15 years, regardless of what some people say. In certain areas, they made it a little taller, but they didn't add any more wall. So instead of literally taking 20 seconds to jump over the wall with a rope or a ladder, now it might take a minute in those areas. That's the only difference. But so I started putting water in the desert, and people would come out and join me, including some of the players from the San Diego Padres. And suddenly we have a name, Ángeles de la Frontera. So after that show, Sábado Gigante in 2001, because Don Francisco invited me several times to come back. But after that first show, I was bombarded by phone calls and faxes. This is 2001, so the internet was barely starting. And the people asked for two things. One, my brother's lost out there. Can you help us? We don't know what happened to him. Or two, can I help? I want to volunteer. And that's something that we're always looking for support. So if you're interested in volunteering with Gente Unida, which is the group that I also founded, contact me. And I'll give you my email and all that kind of stuff. So the website is easy. It's genteunidasd.net. But anyways, so we started going out to the desert to put water to prevent the deaths, because what happened was in 1996, suddenly we saw that people were dying out in the desert. I couldn't believe it. They thought the wall would deter people from coming, but it didn't. Because like the late, great Senator Ted Kennedy once told me, show me a 15-foot wall. That's about how tall the wall is. Show me a 15-foot wall, and I'll show you a 16-foot ladder. And that's exactly what has happened. So we started going out to the desert to place water. And since that wall was built in 1994, more than 12,000 people have died. 12,000 human beings. And here we are, Latino Heritage Month and so forth. And I could almost guarantee that none of you, maybe one or two, but maybe none, could name one of the 12,000 people that have died. 12,000 human beings have died. And I doubt anybody can name one. So I'll tell you the story of one. There was a little boy named Marco Antonio Villaseñor. He was only 5 years old, Marco Antonio. 5 years old. And he crossed the only way he could. Because when I've been on these shows, the crazy shows, Tucker Carlson, Hannity and all that, oh, why don't they get in line? And I go, there is no line. Who in their right mind would cross in the desert where they might die if they could just get in line? Nobody. So Marco Antonio wanted to come into this country. Well, actually, his dad did. He was only 5 years old. So his dad took him. And as he was crossing and he went into the United States, he became very thirsty. He was already on the U.S. side. He was in Texas. He became very thirsty. And he asked his father for some water. And the father would not give his 5-year-old son water, incredibly. So then Marco Antonio asked the next man, and the next man, and the next man. He asked 18 men for water. And none of these 18 men would give the little boy water. And why not? The 18 men were already dead, as was his father. And Marco Antonio also died. 19 human beings perish in Texas. And these are families that I've gotten to know. These are families that I went there after I heard that story. I went to the area where this took place in Texas to meet some of the survivors, because there was other people there that did survive, and to meet some of the families of the people that had lost their loved ones. And it's just heartbreaking. It's just heartbreaking to know that if there was humane immigration policies, they would have lived. We've all seen in the last couple of months children abandoned in the desert, a little baby in diapers and the little brother that's 3 years old, abandoned out there. Just imagine if a wild animal came along. We've all seen what happened just 2 weeks ago with our Haitian brothers and sisters and the Border Patrol on horseback whipping them. Unacceptable, totally unacceptable. If the people crossing were crossing the Canadian border, and they were white people from Norway, let's say, this would not happen. I guarantee it. I guarantee it. And I'm the one that's out there. I'm out there. I've held people that are dying in my arms. I've been able to resuscitate people, and not only me. There's a bunch of us, right? But anyways, so that's what Border Angels became known for. We did a lot of different things. Many of you have seen our actions. For example, 6 times I was able to convince the Border Patrol to open up the door at a place called Friendship Park. Friendship Park is where the wall is, San Diego, Tijuana, and there's a door there. So I talked to the head of the Border Patrol and I said, hey, listen, in Mexico, we celebrate Children's Day on April 30th. How about if on April 30th this coming year, you open the door for just a few minutes and let a child hug his mom or his dad? Okay, but only one person. Okay, I'll go for that. So, anyways, so we did. And when that moment happened, we only had 3 minutes. And I'll never forget it. A little girl named Jimena, just 4 years old, hugged her father, Luis, for the first time in his life. They had never hugged before. And here I am under the door, which I call the door of hope. And I'm standing there listening to them. And of course, I started crying, but the Border Patrol agent did too, because it was so emotional. Just imagine hugging your child for the first time. And then after the 3 minutes, they have to go back to their own countries. And I thought, wow, this is so powerful. We got to do this more. So I was able to convince the Border Patrol to do that the next year, and not only have one family, but increase it to more families, etc., and then increase it to more days. And it was quite a battle. They said, Enrique, you told us it was Children's Day, so we agreed. And I go, yes, April 30th is Children's Day in Mexico, but November 20th is Children's Day internationally. So we were up to 2 days a year, and we were going to grow it, and then Trump happened, so it was stopped. But we're working on doing it again. And after we started doing it in San Diego, and other groups started doing it in Texas, etc. So we're going to bring that back. We call it the door of hope, because it's so important to have that human touch, that embrace. So with Border Angels, I was able to lead the organization and grow the organization. And then in April of 2019, another incident took place that greatly affected my life. Here in San Diego, there was the killing of a woman at a synagogue by a white supremacist. You might remember it in the news. It was in Poway, which is part of San Diego. And this white supremacist went into the synagogue and killed a woman. After that killing, I said, that's enough. I need to revive Gente Unida, which I had started previously. And I want to revive it because we got to stop the hate. Hate words lead to hate actions. And the person at the White House was spreading a bunch of hate. He started his campaign saying that I was a rapist and a criminal because he said Mexicans are rapists and criminals. Well, his hate words led to hate actions. And I said, I'm going to do everything possible to make sure that he's removed from where he's at. So I said, I'm going to dedicate 2020 last year to the elections. This was April when I said that. In November, which was the anniversary of the starting of Border Angels, I retired. I retired actually on November 1st, which is the Day of the Dead for children, November 2nd, Day of the Dead for adults. So I retired on November 1st. We had a ceremony at the cemetery, which is 2 hours east of San Diego, in a little town called Holtville, Holt, Holtville. 500 unidentified migrants are buried there. So we go there every year, and I've led a ceremony there for 20 years. And what we do at the end of the ceremony, we're not a religious group, we're a faith-based group. So at the cemetery, we put crosses like this one, which says No Olvidados. And this is in Spanish. This was given to me by a blind woman, actually. And we put crosses, and we also put stones in the Jewish tradition. We also release butterflies at the end of the ceremony. So we include all faiths, well, several faiths. And then, that was my last day as the executive director of Border Angels and my first day as the executive director of Gente Unida. That was November 1st, 2019. 8 days later, I was in Berlin because November 9th is the anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. So they invited me to go out there to give talks about building bridges, not walls. And that was my message. So I was out there and I said, we're going to focus on the election next year, 2020. And I have a podcast. One is called Buen Hombre. I used to have one called Bad Hombre. This one's Buen Hombre, and another one called Magnificent Mujer. And we had some pretty high profile people on there to promote getting out the vote. Some of you are young and will have no idea who this is. But one of the persons I had on there was Linda Ronstadt. Now, I know that there's a few of you that are going, Linda Ronstadt? Who's Linda Ronstadt? Well, Linda Ronstadt was way bigger than Beyonce. I know you all know who Beyonce is. Well, Linda Ronstadt was way bigger than her. And Linda Ronstadt, you might not know her because of your age, but you might know the drummer that was in her band, her backup band, because one day she told me during the podcast, she said, you know, you're too good, you and your buddy here, you guys should form your own band. So they did. The drummer was a guy named Don Henley, and they formed the Eagles. Most of you know who the Eagles are, probably all of you do. But anyways, so I had people like Linda Ronstadt, Antonio Villaraigosa, who was the mayor of Los Angeles. I invited people like Eva Longoria, etc. So the podcast, the message was get out the vote, get out the vote. We cannot allow 50 million plus not to vote again like we did in the previous election, because when people don't vote, evil things can happen, and they sure did for 4 years. So we got out the vote, and now we have a new guy sitting at the White House, and he needs to do a lot better. But there is a huge difference between what we had and what we have. But we need to do a lot better. We need to hold them liable as well. I'm not a Democrat. I'm independent. But I worked with President Obama as a advisor, and I got to know him, and I think he's a good man. He there's some things he did I didn't agree with, but we need to continue to move forward. And the person that's going to make the change is us. We need to be the change we want to see in the world. And that reminds me of a story that greatly impacted my life. I went to USD, the University of San Diego, and one day this guy came and gave a talk, and you all know his grandfather. His grandfather is Mahatma Gandhi from India. So Gandhi's grandson came to USD to give a talk. And Gandhi's grandson shared a story that I had heard before, and some of you have heard before. So when he started telling it, I go, oh, now I know who made it up. It was Gandhi. But when I asked him afterwards, he goes, no, my grandfather used to say it, but he didn't make it up. And it's the story of a man walking along the beach with his son. And as he's walking along the beach with his son is picking up these starfish and he's throwing them into the ocean. So the father says to the son, what are you doing? And he goes, I'm picking up these starfish and throwing them into the ocean. And the father says, yeah, I can see that, but why are you doing that? So the little boy goes, well, Dad, it's so hot out here. The sun is so bright and the tide has gone in. These starfish are dying. And the father says, yes, son, but there's thousands of starfish. What you do doesn't make a difference. And the little boy picked up a starfish and he says, it'll make a difference to this one. The power of one, the power of one. That starfish might not be a starfish. It could be a person. And that person could be Malala from Pakistan, who teaches us about women's rights, or Greta from Norway talking about the environment. That generation, your generation, that's where the future is. And so the power of one person can make a huge difference for good or for bad, like we saw in the previous administration. So we're very active with what we do with Gente Unida. And this year's focus has been the children, because the society is judged on how we treat our children. And I just came back from New York. I was in New York for the first time I got on a plane in over a year. I was in New Jersey and New York, and I gave talks about Gente Unida and how people can get involved, because we really need help. When we see the heartbreaking situation of a baby in the desert by themselves, or a family being separated, like what happened under Trump, or the 7 children that died in Border Patrol custody, which happened under Trump, or the whipping of Haitian migrants, which happened under Biden. We need to be a change. I guarantee you, if those Haitians were blonde haired, blue eyed, not one of them would have been whipped. Not one. You wouldn't have had that situation. And we all know it. We all know it. Most of us on the call are people of color. And most people in the world, people of color or not, are good people. But there's people motivated for other reasons to do the wrong thing. And And we need to make sure that we emphasize that love is what conquers hate. So with Gente Unida, we have a program where we have our vice president. Her name is Adi. She is unbelievable. She's from the great country of Iran, and she does dance sessions with the children. So she goes to the shelters. Before we used to go there physically, but now through Zoom, and she leads dance sessions for the children because dance releases a lot of the tension and the stress and so forth. So it's sort of like dance therapy, although we can't call it therapy, but that's really what it is. So she leads the dance sessions and the kids follow her dances, and it's beautiful to see. It's beautiful to see the response, how much the children love her. And we did it at the San Diego Convention Center where we had some of the detained children for a while. We do it at the shelters in Tijuana, Mexicali, which is in northern Mexico. We do it in the shelters in San Diego. So that type of action is love in action. So we do dance, we do music, we do a drum circle. We do a drum circle, and not only do we have the drums in a big circle, we also have musicians with string instruments, violins, and so guitars and so forth. And then we also have art therapy where we have muralists, like this mural behind me here. This was painted by a friend of mine, Salvador Barajas. But we also have a mural that we're working on right now of Dolores Huerta, painted by my compadre Mario Torero. And so we do dance or art therapy where the children, they draw, all of these types of things, dance, music, art. It's a way for the children to be distracted and for a little while go into another world because they're not at fault for the situation they're in. Before the pandemic, I was in Los Angeles and I went to a temple, a Jewish temple, and this woman said to me, "Oh, I saw you on CNN or something," and she said, "I don't understand how parents could have their children, be unaccompanied and try to get into the United States, etc." And I said, "I'm kind of surprised you're saying that." Because as a Jewish woman, you know the story of Moses better than I do. And Moses' mom put him in a basket, in a river, to let him go for the same reason. She doesn't do that, Moses dies. So she hopes that he'll float down the river and picked up and survive. That's the same thing these people are doing. And she said, I had never thought about it that way. I go, yes, it's an act of love. Like with Adi, the woman who's our vice president from Iran, she came to the United States during the Iran-Iraq war, which was in the late 1980s. And she was only 14 years old. She didn't speak English. She spoke Farsi, the language they speak in Iran. And eventually she learned English. Eventually she started working with the Iraqis, which were the enemies of Iran during the war, to get them to the dance sessions and so forth. And I met her later on when I saw what she was doing at the shelters in Tijuana. I said, this woman's amazing. So she's very active. She just wrote a book, which I highly recommend, and it's called A Girl Called Rumi, by Adi Honarvar. And we're going to put it on our website. We don't have it on our website yet, I don't think. But it tells her story about how she came to this country, because if she would have stayed, it's sort of like what's happening in Afghanistan now with the Taliban, where the women have no rights. So she came, and now she's leading these sessions. She's our vice president. So our work now with Gente Unida, we do a lot of work with the Haitians. We do a lot of work with the people from Afghanistan. As a matter of fact, they just announced yesterday that a lot of the refugees are coming to San Diego. We have a large refugee community here from the Middle East. People know that we're on the border with Mexico, so of course we have a lot of people from Latin America that come here, but also from other parts of the world. That's one of the things that a lot of people don't realize. There's 250 million undocumented people in the world. 250 million. The US only has 10 million. Most have no desire to come to the United States. It's not the country of choice for most people. You see what's going on. The mistreatment of the migrants, people dying in custody, the horseback and the whipping, and so on and so forth. So 250 million in the world, the US has 10 million. Last year, there was about 350 people that died crossing from Mexico into the US. They're not necessarily from Mexico, but they crossed from Mexico, 350. In Europe, people crossing from the Middle East and Africa to Europe, 8,500 died. You could lose 350 in one day. The ferry boat or the boat tips over and they drown. This is happening every day. This is a worldwide situation. And there's two countries responsible for this situation. Two countries. The country they come from, they need to do a better job, security and better economic situation, et cetera. And of course, they're trying to. And the other country is the United States, because the United States has 4% of the world's population, yet it consumes 35% of the world's natural resources. How could that be fair? They interfere in the politics of other countries, placing dictators. We saw what they did in Panama and Guatemala and Honduras and Iraq. Afghanistan didn't ask the United States to get involved, and we saw what happened there. So the United States needs to stay out of other countries' business. So there's two countries that are at fault: the United States and the country that the people come from. So when I do these shows, and I've done them all, I try to present the realities of what's taking place, the realities of migration. Most of us are not Native American. Yes, I have Native American blood. I'm Mexican. And in my situation, like many of you that are Latino, you heard the phrase, we didn't cross the border crossed us. I could trace my roots to the 1600s, to this side of the border. And so it's important that when I'm traveling, like if I'm in Mexico, I talk about what Mexico should be doing. Or if I'm in wherever I am, I talk about what that country should be doing. When I'm here in the US, like right now, I talk about what the US should be doing. So we can make this a better world for all, but it's important that we do it with actions, not just with words. We're going to be doing an event on November 2nd, which is el Dia de los Muertos, the Day of the Dead. We're going to go to that cemetery, which I briefly mentioned. And I know you're doing something yourselves with altars and so forth, and that's great. So what we're going to do is we're going to honor the people that have died, 500 unidentified people buried there. And we're going to, at the end of the ceremony, we release butterflies in the spirit of rebirth. So all these things that we do, you're more than welcome to join us, and we encourage you to get involved with us. We have, apart from a girl called Rumi book, we also have another book. It's the Border Angel story, and it talks about how I started the Border Angels and some of the many things that we do. And we also have a T-shirt which says "Love has no borders," and "Amor no tiene fronteras." And we ask for a $25 donation on that. So that information is going to be on the website, because I don't think they've updated it yet, because we're always moving forward and we have so many things that we're doing, and we love to get people involved. So after the pandemic, I'll be going across the country on a regular basis, like I just did this past weekend, speaking to people. We want to, if you're interested in having me come to your community, contact us. It's a genteunida.net, and my email is Enrique C. Morones, Enrique C, the letter C, Morones, at gmail.com. Enrique C. Morones at gmail.com. Or you could text me at 619-977-9467, because I'm here in San Diego. And but I wanted to open it up to all of you. I shared some stories about what Gente Unida is doing. We are very, very active. We're always looking for people to help us, especially you young folks that know all about social media, and I don't even know what the lingo is, but Instagram and that type of thing. So I don't know any of that. All I can barely do is send an email. That's all I know how to do. Unless anybody is getting faxes now. I know how to send a fax, but you probably don't use faxes anymore. And I just got batteries for my beeper. So if you have a beeper, I could beep you. So I'm just kidding. No, but anyways, I am serious about having you join us. We really appreciate and welcome your support and your help. So with that, I'll conclude and open it up to dialogue, because the best part of these presentations is your participation. So I welcome it, and I thank you for showing interest. And so gracias, muchas gracias. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Alfonso. I see you. I will get you first.
Right.
I want to thank you for just enlightening us so much. You are the one that's there helping people. So thank you. I will turn it over to Alfonso for a question.
All right.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I'm not sure how to address you, Doctor or Mr.
Oh, Enrique.
Enrique. Okay. Well, thank you so much. I love your story.
Thank you.
Two things. The very first thing before I forget, what's the last four of your cell phone?
Oh, my phone number is 619-976-9467. 977-9467. In the
Thank you.
area 619. Uh-huh.
Thank you. So, um, I actually am a former undocumented immigrant. My mother and I attempted 7 times in 1979. We grew up in San Joaquin Valley. I picked grapes. I picked all the fruits, almonds, potatoes, tomatoes. We were out there before the sun came up, and I grew up in the I call them concentration camps because the only thing that was missing was the guards. It would be a long hallway with bunk beds, and that's where we migrants would sleep. That's just the way I grew up. I thought everybody grew up that way. And so I graduated high school, joined the Marines, and I'm currently
Thank
a realtor, and I'm doing okay for myself. I'm a law student, and I want to I want to dedicate my second part of my life to give back to people that have experienced what I experienced, which is the struggles and the discrimination and the oppression and the not knowing that we have rights. You know, it was President Reagan that helped us by giving us amnesty, and I remember that.
Well,
And
it was a Democrat and a Republican that did the bill. Yeah.
correct. And so I just remember someday I just got a green card. I didn't know what that meant at the time, but obviously it was a good thing. So I want to get involved. I'm currently very knee deep in my law school studies, and my intention is definitely to be an immigration attorney at this point. That's my goal, and I want to give all my services as little fees to free as possible because I already have a couple businesses going, and that's my full intention to be self-sufficient and give this away. So I'm not sure how much time I can go out and dedicate with my studies, but I want to be able to uh, contribute financially, or if I can do something. I'm in LA, I'm based in LA. Obviously, I'm going to the College of Law here in the University of Laverne in Ontario. If there is anything I can do on supporting and keeping the social media post up or spreading out words, anything that you would suggest, I'd love to start. I definitely want to buy your book, and I'll buy the shirt. I don't, I'll figure out how to do that. I'll text you and email you. But I just want to start to get more involved. It's always been in the back of my head. I just can't. I'm having a hard time trying to figure out how I can physically get out there.
Well, Alfonso, thank you very much for your service in the military and for being a frontline worker in the fields, you and your family. Um, all of us in our family history have worked in the fields. You just did it. In my family, it might have been 3 or 4 generations ago. Somebody else might be 10 generations. But yeah, so you've done the hard work. You know the realities of the situation. And yes, they are like concentration camps. So thank you very much. I am good friends with the Chavez family. On our advisory board, we have Paul Chavez. That's Cesar's second son. And I work a lot with Dolores Huerta. The mural we're doing right now is about Dolores Huerta. They're the two founders of United Farm Workers, Cesar and Dolores. And yeah, and then as far as the military, we've done these caravans. It was mentioned in the bio where I went across the country with a bunch of people, rise up for humane immigration policies. And one of the things we asked for is to return the deported veterans. How could people that fought for this country that were undocumented be deported? They felt so patriotic to this country. They went and fought for the United States. They come back and they're deported. So let's say, for example, they're deported to Mexico. They might not speak Spanish. They might have never been in Mexico except when they were born. This is insane. So we've been able to successfully get some of the people back. And yeah, there's a lot of insane laws. You could definitely help us on phone. So there's lots of opportunities. I know you're very busy with school, but some of it might just be some ideas. Hey, Enrique, have you thought about this or that? Those types of things. We do a lot of work in Los Angeles. And I have some contacts up there. And one of the things that I could think for Laverne, actually, there's a dear friend of mine that's up there. His name is Jose Luis Hernandez Cruz. He's from the great country of Honduras. And I met him when he came down to meet me one time. And the person in my office goes, yeah, this guy says he knows you. I was actually at Cesar Chavez's wife's funeral. So I said, I'll be back tomorrow. So when I come back, there's a guy standing out there, no arms, one leg. He lost his limbs on La Bestia, the trains that come from south to north through Mexico, the cargo trains. He fell off on the last train. His leg was crushed when he woke up. So he reached in to try to pull it, and he lost his arms and so forth. Anyways, he lives in LA, and he gives very powerful talks. So I'm always looking for people in LA. Laverne would be a perfect place for him to go to. I don't know how your Spanish is, but he just needs somebody to translate for him. And so we do a lot of work in those areas, and we have a network of people in Los Angeles. You know, the 2-3 cities that have the most people: New York, where I just was; Los Angeles, where you are; and Chicago. But regardless of where you're at or you're from, there's a need. So yes, we welcome it, Alfonso. Please email me, text me. We'll be in touch because you can make the power of one. You can make a huge difference, and that huge difference might be just having somebody for Jose Luis to talk to in LA, etc. So yes, yeah, thank you. Muchas gracias.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate it. And you know, I every time I see the kids there, I was 4 years old when I crossed the border, and I feel like I came out okay. I came out okay. I just needed a helping hand. That's all I
Right.
needed. And
Yes.
so every time I see the pictures of those kids, I see me. I see that could be a Marine. That could be a U.S. American love, patriot. You just got to give them a hand. So that's what I
Exactly.
want to do. That's what I want to do. So I'm gonna reach out to you.
All right, Alfonso, gracias. And
De
then all
nada.
of you email me, because that way I have your email, and we'll put you on the list. And the person that does our social media, she's a teenager. Her name is Sophia, so she'll be the one. Because I'm sure you don't have a beeper, so I'm not gonna be able to send you a beep or a fax. Yeah.
In addition to him being such a great humanitarian, he's also quite hilarious. Thank you, Alfonso. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Does anyone else have a question? Oh, here we go. We have a question in the chat. This is from Nora Navarrete Dominguez. I live in Bakersfield, home to both the United Farm Workers and Dolores Huerta headquarters. Have you considered establishing chapters to expand your work?
Well, that's a good question, Nora. I love that name, Nora, because my sister's named Nora. Um, yes, as a matter of fact, when I was the executive director of Border Angels, we had established chapters all over. And then after I retired, the group that's in charge of Border Angels now are almost all attorneys, and they've kind of gone in a different direction. But with Gente Unida, we are establishing other chapters. Like I mentioned, I went to Berlin right after my retirement, and we established chapters in Berlin, in Dublin, Ireland, in Paris, and in Belgium, because we had contacts out there. So in Europe we have chapters, and here in the U.S. we definitely want to have chapters. And Bakersfield is a very important area. Dolores is a good friend of mine, and I've been working a lot with her son Emilio, because we're going to be having a statue built for her in San Diego, and a mural and all this kind of stuff. But we want to have chapters in these locations, because what happens is by being there, Nora, in Bakersfield, and you go back, or I don't know if you're living there now, Bakersfield is a prime area, for farm workers, and people know the story. People know they're like Alfonso. They've worked in the fields. Maybe your family. All of us have, like I said, have worked in the fields. Not in my lifetime, but in my family history as well. So it's a very important. And you have Dolores right there, her foundation and so forth. So yes, absolutely, absolutely. If you're interested in starting a chapter, contact me. I'll help you get going. And then once this crazy pandemic is over, I'll go out there, or somebody from our team will go out there and help you along. I don't need to go out there for you to start it. One of the things that we do that every community can do, because when I started, like I said, I started by going to the canyons in San Diego. Well, we still do that. We go to where the day laborers are in San Diego, and in many of the places you're at. It's at the Home Depots. The guys are standing around in front of the Home Depots. We've all seen them, but most of us have never talked to them. Well, we go talk to them. not only do we talk to them, we bring them snacks and food and clothes and so forth. And for example, on Thanksgiving, which Home Depot is closed, we go there and we bring them turkey sandwiches. So, show them some love, connect with them. And that's something that you can do in Bakersfield and Los Angeles, all over the place. And we do that. When I was just in New York, we also went to New Jersey. I started some chapters again. They said, we missed those chapters. And I go, yeah. And then what we want to do is we want to have some sort of a once a month check-in where we could all talk and so forth. Hey, what's been going on? Well, in Bakersfield, we have this event coming up, or this incident happened. And once Alfonso gets his law degree, he could help us with an immigration case and so on and so forth. So yes, absolutely. Yeah, we do want to start chapters. We've already started a few. But right now we have one, for example, in San Bernardino. In San Bernardino, which is right close to Riverside. As a matter of fact, our board president, you mentioned Yadira, who's the person that told me about yourselves. Her husband, Juan Rosas, who's an educator, he's the president of the board of Gente Unida, and we have a chapter up there, up in San Bernardino. So yes, we'd love to have one in Bakersfield, Los Angeles. Just do it. Sí se puede. You heard that one?
Yes. We are podemos. Did I say it right?
Podemos, yeah.
Comes back when I after I say it a while after I start speaking it. So thank you for that. Thank you, Nora. So Daniel mentioned something in the chat about starting one on our campus, possibly.
Yeah.
I have a question, and this is Julissa. I hope you can chime in as well. When Yadi came a couple years ago, we wanted to go. We were like, we're caravanning. And the problem was we couldn't get permission from ULV, from Laverne, to go across the border. So what can we do on this side to be able to help people?
You don't need to go across the border. We'll do that. We do that, and we'll do it again, and you can do it with me eventually. But right now, you could do what UCLA just did. 2 months ago, UCLA Harbor, the hospital up there, a bunch of doctors from UCLA and medical students came, 50 of them, 50. And I have a bad leg now because of my sports and all that. So I can't walk around too much, but I gave a talk to all 50 of them. And then afterwards, we did the talk at Chicano Park, which is like a historic place in San Diego, little murals. And after we did that, then we headed out to the Imperial Valley. And then I had actually Juan, Yadira's husband, and Hugo Castro, my compadre, they led 25 people each, the groups out in the desert to leave water. And then afterwards, the people come back and they're crying. They go, now I know what it's like when, like Alfonso, I was so little when they crossed me and all that. Well, now they go, oh, no, yeah, I saw that on TV. I saw the wall. There's the wall over there. You can feel the heat from the, and so forth. That's a very powerful experience. So you could do that. Well, I don't know about going out there because there's a Border Patrol checkpoint. I don't have papers. Well, we have other stuff that we do. We also go and visit day laborers. We do it here in San Diego just so you can see how we do it. And we do other stuff. We do stuff at Chicano Park. We do stuff at Friendship Park, which is right where the wall is. Right now the park is closed, but we've done concerts there in the past where I did the door opening. I had famous groups, perform at the wall. Tigres del Norte. I've worked with Maná, with Santana, with groups like that. And we continue to do that type of thing. We continue to, just this on a Saturday and Sunday, I was with a guy that I just met, and he is Antonio Sanchez. You might not recognize the name because that meant nothing to me, but Antonio Sanchez is one of the top drummers in the world. For those of you that saw the movie Birdman, at the very beginning, the music isn't music. Well, it's music, but it's all drums, just drums. It was very moving, and it won an Academy Award, just the music. Well, he's the guy. He's the guy that did that music, and he used to play with Pat Metheny and Chick Corea and all these very famous like jazz type of musicians. He's world class. He goes, Enrique, you got me. I want to go down there. Damien Bichir, who you might not recognize the name, but he was nominated for an Academy Award in a movie called A Better Life. Now he does movies with Quentin Tarantino. He's one of our advisors. Leela Downs, from Oaxaca, she's one of our advisors. So Josefina Lopez, she's the woman that did Real Women Have Curves. She's one of our advisors. So anyways, a lot of these celebrity type people want to get involved with us. As a matter of fact, the last talk I gave before the pandemic was up in LA at an all-women's college called St. Mary's. Some of you have heard of it. So I'm there, I'm giving a talk to all these young ladies at St. Mary's College, and all of a sudden I hear the door open in the back. It's kind of distracting, and I'm in the middle of a real sad story, and I look up to see who it is, and you might know who this is if you've ever seen Seinfeld before. It was George Costanza. George Costanza from Seinfeld, right? And he's a hero to me. You know, he's really funny and all that. So I see him as George Costanza. I know that's his character, but that's how I saw him. So he's very distracting. So afterwards, when I'm done, you know, he comes up and I wanted to ask him, you know, what was it like? What was your favorite episode of Seinfeld and all that? But if I did that, everybody would ask him that. So I stayed focused. And George Costanza said, Jason Alexander, he said, Enrique, I'm a big fan of your work. And I go, how did you find out that that I was going to be here? Do you have a daughter that goes here or something? And he goes, no. 2 weeks ago, you were at my friend's house, and I was going to go, but I couldn't make it. And I go, whose house was that? And he goes, Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is another person that you're all saying, who's Henry Winkler? But he used to come out on a show called Happy Days, the Fonz. He's still alive. Well, obviously, it was just at his house. But anyways, yeah. So a lot of musicians, celebrities, they want to be doing, they're usually very liberal, and they want to do the correct thing. So yeah, so we have a lot of followers like that, and yeah, LA is a hotbed for all that, as you know. A lot of them live there.
Thank you so much. This has given us lots of opportunities. We will, our ULV folks be scheduling something, so look out for that because we will be helping. Before we wrap it up, do we have any additional questions from our audience?
I'm sorry, just one comment on your comment. If we're doing something locally, I definitely, can you keep me in the loop? How can
Absolutely. Alfonso, I'll get your email. I'll get your email address. Do you get things from me? You get them all the time.
Well, that's how I got the invite. So yeah, it's Alfonso.
I send stuff out all the time. So
Yeah.
what we'll do is we'll send something out when we do some type of caravan or whatever it is that we decide to do. Julissa put in the chat that there's a day labor center in Pomona. So whatever it is that we decide that we're going to do, we'll definitely keep you all posted.
I appreciate it. And Enrique, I
Thank you.
definitely will be in touch. Thank you.
Yeah, I'd love to have everybody's emails. There's lots of opportunities. That way you could just hear about, well, I'm going to be in San Diego and maybe there's something going on, or maybe I'm going to be in LA, you know, that type of thing. So if you're interested, you know, I'd love to have them. Yeah,
Awesome.
it was great speaking to all of you.
Any further questions?
I came in late, so you may have already covered this, but I was curious, since you've given many years of thought to not only the border, but American immigration policy, which is a big mess right now. What would be your ideal reform, or what would be your ideal for American immigration policy that might help to bring an end to some of this?
Sure. So yeah, humane immigration policy, you know, it's not that complicated. There should be some sort of a line that people can get into. That doesn't exist. There's no line for people to get into. And the US really needs to stop meddling in the affairs of other countries. When they're taking 35% of the world's natural resources, getting involved with El Salvador's politics or Afghanistan and so on and so forth, you know, there's a consequence to that. When President Bush invaded Iraq, there was you know, the deaths were unbelievable. 1 million Iraqi civilians died. 1 million Iraqi civilians for no reason. So when these things are happening, you know, people have to flee, and then the U.S. won't take them in. So what we should do as a country is have humane immigration policies, because it's kind of a supply and demand issue. If there isn't work here, the people aren't going to, for the economic migrants, because there's migrants that aren't economic. There's migrants that are leaving their country because of violence or ecology, you know, things like that. But as far as the economic migrants, which is actually the main group of people, if there isn't work, they're not going to go here. They're going to go to other countries. That's what happened with the Haitians. When the Haitians left Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, because of the earthquake, you know, 10, 12 years ago, they went to Brazil because there was work in Brazil because of the Olympics. The Olympics are over, no more work. And that's when they started heading through South America. And many of them headed to Mexico to settle in Mexico. And a lot of them have. but most were going to Mexico to cross into the United States. Well, for the most part, there's no way for them to get into the country. There's no line. And those that are seeking asylum, it's blocked. It's blocked. We need more immigration and asylum judges and humane policies. Canada has much better policies than the United States has. So it can be fixed. Both sides of the aisle can do a better job. And that's why we want to make sure that we have the correct people in office. I work a lot. Like I said, I worked with President Obama as an advisor. I know people in the Biden administration, and we're reaching out. We're saying, you're saying some things that we're saying, oh, that's good, but you're not doing them. Remember when President Biden and Vice President Harris came in on January 20th, they said they were going to have humane immigration reform in 100 days. We're well past 200 days. There's no humane immigration reform. And once again, both sides play that up. They both play it up. So all of us need to do a better job, because we can be the change that that we want to see in the world. So make sure that we get the right elected officials, hold their feet to the fire, and that change will happen.
Thank you so much for sharing the why people migrate, because a lot of times people just see people are migrating. They don't see the cause of the immigration. And the United States is definitely behind a lot of it. So we won't get into politics, but thank you for that. I do truly appreciate you speaking on that.
Sure.
So everyone, I want to thank you all for coming. Please, let's give a huge round of applause for our speaker, Dr. Enrique Morones.
Well, thank you.
And yes, I'm going to give you your doctor because you earned it.
Yeah.
Every time I'm going to give you that.
Amor, si se puede.
Yes, sí se puede.
Yes, we
So I want to remind you all of our events that we have for the remaining of the week. The diversity retreat is on Friday from 1 to 5 in the executive boardroom. We have our Welcome Black event on Saturday from 3 to 6 in Foshnot Court, and everyone is invited to attend all of these events. Coming Out Day is in the Center for Multicultural Services in the Lutwick Center from 10 to 2 to make a button supporting the community. We have Indigenous Peoples Day speaker at noon on Monday in the sacred space of the Lutwick Center, and a taco truck lunch for those that attend. And the last Latinx Heritage Month virtual series with Barbara Carrasco, artist and muralist who had her mural censored in 1981. She also drew the Dolores Huerta lithograph that hangs in the homes of many. So once again, thank you all. Peace and blessings. And we will see you hopefully in a few days.
Gracias.